Scottish football's own special, following Scotland in World Cup qualifying.
There you go. A nice, quiet Saturday night. Nothing happened. And then Scotland play again, and the rest was history, as they say in half-time. We were about that. Stevie Clark's the goal. The whole team should go. But then again, keep your feet on the ground, Ethan. And there you go. We still get beat, but still in with a chance to get to the World Cup finals of the playoffs. Anyway, good evening, quiet night. Final score: Greece 3, Scotland 2, and the shock result of the night was Denmark 2, Belarus 2. Ethan, how can you sum that one up in 60 seconds? No, I'm only kidding. We're here for an hour to go over the mistakes. In fact, let's just go to the second half. The first half was a complete disaster, wasn't it? But no, how do you feel, Ethan, after that 94 minutes?
Yeah, so many emotions throughout the 90 minutes across both games, seeing the scores coming in from Copenhagen. I thought that was going to be a foregone conclusion tonight. I just didn't see Belarus standing a chance going to the park, and I thought they beat them 6-0 in the reverse fixture. I just couldn't see any scenario where they come out of Denmark with anything, and they've helped Scotland. And ultimately, from the two eliminated teams, one's tried to hinder us tonight, and fair enough to Greece, they'll feel they've been hard done by the amount of points they've got in the group. And I think the performances against Scotland especially show that. They obviously got the slight bragging rights of the win tonight, but ultimately Scotland are still the team in the competition. And then Belarus pull out one of the shock results, if not the shock result of World Cup qualification, certainly in the European side of it. So you just can't believe it when you see that they're 2-1 up at Denmark, and then obviously Denmark get that goal back, and you think they're going to go on to get a winner. They never quite managed to do so, and that must give the Scotland players massive confidence that how they finished that match. They really should have probably scored 4 or 5 in that second half, Scotland, but you could argue the same for Greece in that first half, and then with how Denmark played. But yeah, this is why we watch football. Just two really entertaining games from a neutral point of view. Obviously, we can't look at it from that point of view as Scotland fans, but for anyone who was choosing to tune into European World Cup qualification on a Saturday night, and that group especially, they would have been highly entertained. But no, I think Scotland on another day, they could have easily won that match, but they left themselves too much to do it 3-0 down, and luckily Belarus have pulled a point out the bag and saved 2 heading the way of Denmark, and kept us in it with that cup final that we're branding it as on Tuesday night at Hampden, where Scotland again need to pick up a win.
Robbie, you'll be hoping for the same. Well, you'll be hoping for St Mirren to do that next Saturday night against Celtic at St Mirren Park, because I mean, I don't know what happened, but football did come around. I think we should just play every Premiership game right at 7:45 on a Saturday night, because that was very entertaining.
Aye. I mean, I think Scotland's man of the match was probably Carlos Alos, the Belarus manager. I mean, I don't know how he's managed to pull out a draw away at Denmark, but full credit to them. It was a really entertaining game, Michael. I thought Scotland really improved in the second half, and I think that was a massive character building example, ahead of Tuesday night. I think there had to be improvements after the first 25-30 minutes. I'm going to be honest, Ethan, I agree with you. I think Scotland could have won that game by a long margin in the second half, but we could have been down by a lot after the first half as well. So I'm just happy we showed some sort of character. And look, we have gave ourselves a chance, although it wasn't exactly us that done it in the end. There is still a chance of an automatic qualification spot. So I'm just hoping on Tuesday night we can show up against Denmark on what I'm sure will be a absolutely crowded out Hampden Park.
Yeah, no, definitely, Ethan. I mean, the group chat was very, very big in the first half, but the second half, it was the opposite what we were saying in the first half. I think somebody used to say, an old phrase in football, it's a funny old game, and it's a game of two halves.
Yeah, it is, and that's what it was. Despite the fact that Greece somehow scored more goals in the second half than they did in the first, despite having a lot less chances. I know they hit the post where I headed as well, and I wrote the chances down for both teams, and I'll run through them just to refresh the memory of how many Scotland chances they actually had, especially in that second half. But yeah, it was a game of two halves. Scotland weren't really in it in the first half. They had a few really good chances at the end of the first period, especially in injury time, and half time kind of came at the wrong time for Scotland, you would say. But they carried it into the second half a little bit, and then Greece obviously get the 2 goals, which especially the first one comes out of nowhere a little bit, and then they get the second one. Craig Gordon should do better, as we mentioned, with the Christos Cholis strike for the third, and at that point you think it's over, and then we get the goal back immediately with Ben Gannon-Doak. John McGinn does really well initially. I think the Greece player was looking for a foul. It was never a foul. He smashes it across, and then Gannon-Doak puts it in. And then I think as that's going in, you're hearing that Belarus have somehow took the lead or flipped the game on its head in Denmark, and you're thinking, oh, we might not have to even do anything tonight. But the way the game was played out, you thought Scotland could go on and even win the game, especially when it goes to 3-2. Ryan Christie, really good header, but excellent cross from Andrew Robertson, and he leaves the goalkeeper with no chance. And then you're just hoping Scotland could go on and get goals. And there was a scenario where if Scotland, I think, won the game, where Denmark were losing, that Scotland would only need a point on Tuesday, but obviously it didn't play out that way. And yeah, I think even if Scotland had won tonight, they still would have. Well, if they had won tonight, they would have needed a draw. But a win was a big ask, especially when we were trying to scrape for a draw, and we definitely should have got it with the chances we had. But yeah, just a crazy game of football, and I'm just glad Scotland are starting with a fighting chance going into Tuesday.
You've got to say Craig Gordon, was at fault for, was it the second goal or the third goal? I can't remember. Third goal, because there was a lot of goals and a lot of incidents happening in that game, Robbie. But I think you can be give or take, but I think you should maybe just give him the man of the match, because the game should have been well over by half time.
I think he gets man of the match. You know, if you look at the sort of rest of the team, to be honest with you, I think he was always going to be man of the match. I think he was always going to have to make a lot of saves, and I think that's why there was a lot of talk pre-game about who starts and goals, because you're looking at Gordon, who hasn't played in a while. You know, he has been injured. What's he going to be like stepping into the big occasion? Obviously, we know he's got the experience, so that was always maybe on Clark's mind, and he was always going to be the choice to go in goals. And look, it worked out, no matter if it was at fault for the third goal or no. I thought, if he's not in the net, we're probably 5 or 6 then, to be honest with you. That's the type of chances Greece were creating. So, Craig was amazing, and look, it would have been so difficult for him, because if we're being honest, the defence, in particular the 2 centre-backs tonight, were really, really poor.
No, what's your views on that, Ethan? I think you know my views. I think I've made it clear in the chat a few times, but there you go. Over to you, Ethan, and try and get out that one.
No, yeah, I think to be fair, Craig Gordon done almost all he could with the first 2 goals. The third one, I think he should do better. It's a shot from range. It's not really in the corner. He should do better, and he'll know. I think his reaction told you that he thought he should have done better with it. But at that point, I think you were willing to say, the game's gone. He's kept us in it up until this point. We'll let him get away with it now. You look at it, and if he doesn't let that in, then maybe it's a different game. But you need to look at these things all hypothetically, and he did make some great saves in the first half. For the first goal as well, he made a solid save. It was terrible defending from John Souttar. First of all, we misread the flight of the ball completely, bounced off his head, and then him and Hanley would just let Pavlidis have a shot. Craig Gordon saves it well, and then it comes to Bakasetas, and he finishes as well. Although Hanley, again, just caught flat-footed. He rushed out to him and he just danced past him and put it in. The captain, who Liam McLeod was saying wasn't even in the squad initially, and then had a terrible reception when his name was called out, because he's a Panathinaikos player playing in Piraeus. is obviously the home of Olympiacos, their rivals, which is strange. Something that I don't think we see as poorly in the Scotland setup. Maybe
Yeah,
some people have
Yeah,
disagreed,
that was weird to see. I mean, especially for your national team, even.
yeah, your captain as well. So yeah, I thought that was a bit strange. But yeah, and then he obviously puts them in the lead. And then yeah, Scotland were terrible after that. They had all the chances. Greece. I'm trying to look to see what moments I can remember. Hanley gave away a corner. Pretty much he turned and played it back to Craig Gordon. It was one of the worst back passes I've ever seen. And Craig Gordon couldn't keep it from going out from a corner. Greece nearly doubled the lead. Pavlidis turned, I think he nutmegged Suter and then turned round Hanley. He was making them look silly, and then it came to Chiolis and he fired wide. Gordon made another few good saves. Scotland, 10 minutes from half time, they had 3 corners in a row, which was the best point of the game for Scotland so far. And then Pavlidis comes off with the injury, and Andrews Teti comes on, who obviously done really well for the second goal, but I thought he was a bit, I don't know, he didn't seem great. But he got a warm reception from the fans, despite the fact that he's joining Panathinaikos in January. So, I don't know how that works and what the fans are thinking, but fair enough, he made his debut. And then, obviously, I think Scotland ended the half the better of the team and then carried that into the second half, despite Greece somehow scoring twice, even though they had way less chances in the second period.
We'll come back to Leo comment in a minute. Can we talk about the strikers for Tuesday? I think you know how I feel about the strikers, guys, so I'm not going to say it because I've already said it about 10 times. I think Shankland, if you're listening, Stevie Clark, if you've never watched the show before, please go and watch it, because every time we do a Scotland show, Robbie, I'm always in the Shankland fan club, so we'll talk about that in a wee minute or two as well. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't any positives to take out that first half. Even Remgov about 3 corners at the end of the half as well, and McTominay shot off the bar. That was the only thing to write home about for a Scotland point of view anyway in the first half.
Che Adams having a big chance at the back post as well, which I think the commentary team summed up very well. I think he probably did do all he could. There's arguments that maybe should have flung his whole body at it and it might have been different, but there wasn't too. You're right. There's not too much to write home about the first half. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen it back a few times. The McTominay chance. I think he doesn't realise how much time he's actually got, and I can understand why he's hit it first time. And I get it. And if it goes in, I'm not on here complaining about it. But for me, in that situation, you just take another touch, and you've got an even better chance at scoring in that situation.
Yeah, I think he maybe looking at it in hindsight, that maybe is what he should have done. It was really good play from Scotland, probably the best we had seen of the half at that point, and then he takes the strike first time, tries to catch Vlachodimos off guard, and yeah, it's just unfortunate it comes off the bar. But I think the even bigger chance, even after the Adams one, which I think I agree with Robbie, I think he should have, well, not should have, I think he probably done his best. It was a difficult angle, and would have been doing well to score that. But Scotland did end the half a lot better, and then they had the Ben Gannon Doak chance where McTominay finds him. I think Tsimikas thinks he's going to slip it off to Shea Adams, who's made a run, and he turns and he's through and goal. He tries to put it on his right foot, and Vlachodimos closes down the angle and saves it well. And that was the one, I think, the big chance that really frustrated me, that I thought Scotland should have scored, and it could have been a different game. But you could have said that for a countless number of chances, and especially in that second half.
Sorry, Mike, I was just saying in terms of that one with Ben Doak, again, I think it was one of the commentators said that, I love Ben. I think he's got all the technical ability. I think he's really good on the ball. He's really quick, but his final product really needs to be developed, because there's so many times that there was a cross as well in the first half. I think it might have been early in the second, where he just sends it straight into the crowd, and you know, I love the guy, and I think he will be a really, really big player for Scotland. And he's got all the ability he can need, but that final product needs to be developed, because there was a few times where maybe he could have done better, and obviously with that chance that Ethan said as well, you know, he should have done better with that. So I'm trying not to be too critical of the guy, because he has got a lot of ability, but the final product's definitely something to develop.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's just leave that first half, right? And Robbie, let's speak about the basketball game. I mean, the second half of the game. Because in case you never had me there, I was like a basketball game in the second half. It was basically the complete opposite from the first half to Scotland, because I mean, Scotland came out in the front foot, they started well. I think things were looking up for us in the second half, and then obviously Greece get a quick goal, and you're like, okay, game over. But if you were James McFadden, I think if Scotland were getting beat 5-0, James McFadden would probably say, no, Scotland will win 6-5. I think he was the only positive Scotland fan over Greece at that point.
I think so. That second goal really took the sting out of the game. I mean, it was a beautiful finish. You know, Gordon's not doing anything, but the second goal, no chance. And it came at a really bad time as well. It's such a simple counter-attack for Greece as well. You know, it could have been defended a lot better. You know, I don't think the ball should be doing it that area. I think we should probably be pushing a wee bit more. It's just given away so cheaply, and I think we've done that quite a few times during the game tonight. I think we just gave the ball away in really cheap areas. I mean, the amount of times Robertson has a chance to go forward and he's just taking it back and going with the backwards approach. I'm like, you know, you've just got to drive at this Greece team. I thought if we put a lot more pressure on them, you know, we could have caused even more trouble. I think you've seen that in the second half with the way we reacted. I think Greece were probably a bit spooked, to be honest with you. I don't think they expected that amount of pressure. And at the end of the day, you know, there's so many chances in the game where the game could have turned. You know, I know somebody commented earlier about Che Adams, that some of the chances he missed alone could have probably gave us the win. But I think the second goal, Michael, just completely took the sting out of the game. And then when it goes 3-0, you're probably sitting there thinking there's no chance, but somehow we switched it on after it went to 3-0, astonishingly.
Yeah, I thought the game was gone at that point, and I think the real flip of the switch moment, if you want to call it, or flick of the switch moment in the second half was the one where I think it was Karetsas, the winger, who played it into the middle of the park, and Christie sort of took it round the defender, and he's through on goal, and then he tries to square it to Adams, and Adams makes a mess of it, or is blocked on the line by Karetsas twice. But yeah, I think both of them need to do better. Christie should probably just go himself, and then Adams is thinking about it too much. He's trying to place it rather than just put it where it's came from, and there's two defenders on the line that do well to block it. And then right after that, a couple of minutes after, Greece break down the left with Tete, the substitute I mentioned, and then Grant Hanley didn't really defend it well, and then it plays to Karetsas, and it's a really good goal. He's left foot. Craig Gordon didn't really have a chance, and then at that point you think it's all over, and then at 2-0 you've still got a chance, but the third goes in the way it went in. Craig Gordon should have done a lot better. You think there's no way that Scotland are going to come back into this match, and then they get a goal right after, as Robbie said, and decide to kick themselves into life. And the amount of chances they had after that, after getting the second, was unbelievable. And yeah, well, against Denmark, certainly on both ends, we'll have to sort of restrict them from getting as many chances as that, because I think this is maybe Greece's downfall and why they've got how many points, and they've not in the conversation for top spot or even second, is because they just don't take their chances. They've had a barrel load against Scotland across the last 4 games. Obviously Scotland have won 2 of those, Greece have won 2 of those, but really they've had a lot of chances and not taken them. And you imagine with the firepower Denmark have, that they will take the chances. And also on the other end, you don't imagine they'll give up as many chances, but then again, there's them conceding 2 goals to Belarus. So you never know. It's a funny game.
Robbie, So I sorry, Robbie, I was just going to say, what do you make of Adams tonight? Thanks for your comment on YouTube. It says Adams should be nowhere near the Scotland squad. Please, let there be a foreign manager the next time around. By the way, Stevie Clark's given the job, and they could still get us to a World Cup. A very, very outside chance, Robbie. But sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to talk about Pavlidis up front for Greece. I know he got 2 early, and I know he's got such a good record at club level, by the way. And some the goal records that guy's got is ridiculous sometimes. But at international level, he really seems to disappoint, and I think the Greece fans would probably think the same. His record's not all that great, and I think Ethan, you were right. I thought Greece were quite wasteful overall in the campaign. They could have had maybe a fighting chance, but on to Adams, I'm probably quite disappointed with Adams as well. I think the whole Steve Clarke manager chat and who's next is probably for another show, to be honest with you. Steve Clarke might still be in charge until next year, so I definitely think that's a chat for another day. But I do think Clark's got to be braver with all changes. I think if we're being honest, I think the likelihood is Souttar and Hanley will probably start on Tuesday night. But if you're basing it off of how that game went, you'd probably argue they should both be dropped, to be honest with you. And a lot of people, and I know it's the running sort of theme that Grant Hanley always seems to get some sort of stick, and he's not always playing the best. But I'd argue tonight that Souttar was just as bad as Grant Hanley. I really thought Souttar struggled to handle Greece at points, the whole attack force. And if you're basing it off of that game, you could probably see the 2 centre backs and Adams getting dropped for the game on Tuesday. I don't think that will happen. I don't think that's how Steve Clarke will think, but it could. And I think if you're basing it off of that, then it should. But I definitely think Adams shouldn't start on Tuesday. And Michael, I think I'm the same as you, right? I'm always in the Shankland boat to play, and I think he is such a good striker. I actually think Dykes would suit us better on Tuesday. Just the pure physicality of Dykes up front. I thought that's what we were missing at points in this game. That's why I was a bit surprised it took him 88 minutes for Dykes to come on. So I think on Tuesday you maybe start Lyndon Dykes up front and try and get the ball up to him, get him to hold it up, which Dykes can do very, very well, and then try and play off of him, which is just what, to be honest, in my opinion, I thought we were missing tonight.
Yeah, I think for Che Adams, he's a player that I think he's sort of most parts of his game for Scotland, and tonight I would say the same, are good. Linking up play, coming in deep, holding up the ball, stuff like that. I think he's okay. But in front of goal, especially in the big games where Scotland need a goal, not against the middle nations, and that's what he's been accused of. I know he got that massive goal against Denmark the last time we played them at Hampden, and hopefully he does that again. But most of his goals have came against the sort of lesser nations. And when you need him to step up in big games like tonight, he had some big chances and he couldn't find the net. And there's a player, Lawrence Shankland, obviously, has been mentioned, who's firing on all cylinders at club level for Hearts. Would he take those chances? I think you're quite fair to question. I think you're quite fair to make the point that he would. Che Adams seemed like a player tonight who's not confident in front of goal, and that's what we'll need, because as I said, we're not going to get as many chances against Denmark. I imagine it's going to be a lot more tight game, although I predicted enough in each for tonight and it was 3-2 and should have been about 6-5. So you never know. These things are difficult to predict. But yeah, I would also agree with Robbie's point about John Souttar. I thought John Souttar and Grant Hanley both found it really difficult tonight. I thought the Greek attacking players ran them ragged all night almost. And yeah, that would be a real area of concern, the 2 central defenders and the striker position, because ultimately, although I like a lot of what the work Che Adams done tonight, if he can't put the ball in the net, then that's his number one objective, and that's what we need him for as a striker.
Before we go on, guys, I'd like to say at this point, obviously, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. It's the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube, and you can subscribe to the Spotify channel. Funnily enough, that's just called the Scottish Football Zone, and we are on every Friday night from 5 till 7, and then every Sunday as well. We cover the Scottish teams in Europe, Celtic, Rangers, and Aberdeen. Obviously, Scotland tonight as well. And yes, and then we'll be back on Tuesday for the big game. The winner takes all. I think I'm going to look at that ABBA song. Remember that ABBA song, The Winner Takes All? Maybe not this time on the Saturday night, between Scotland and Denmark live from Hampden. Robbie, I think by the end of the show, me and you and maybe Ethan, if he wants to, we could set up a Twitter page to demand Lachlan Shatton in the Scotland 11, because I mean, what's the point of taking that guy all the way over there, right? And they came on with 8 minutes to go. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I would start Shatton every game for Scotland.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point to make, Michael, because Shea Adams doesn't seem like he's going to be the guy to score the goals in the big games, and that's what we need him for. That's the difference between your teams that make the World Cup and your teams that don't. They have big strikers that can score big goals. You look at Norway, the perfect example, how many goals Erling Haaland scored in qualifying. If they didn't have him, probably wouldn't have qualified, and that's the difference. And I know we've not got an Erling Haaland, but we've got a good core of players across the pitch that can help a striker create chances like they did tonight, and he just didn't take them. And yeah, I think he did maybe wait too long to make the subs, but at the same time I could see maybe and I am one for always questioning why Steve Clarke always waits so long to make his subs, but I could see why he didn't. He sort of held off tonight because the way Scotland were playing, they were creating the chances, and any other occasion they probably should score enough goals to get a draw or even win the game, but they obviously didn't find the target, and then the responsibility falls on Steve Clarke. But I think maybe the players should take more responsibility for not getting the third goal in the second half. But I think maybe the first half comes from, and how negative and poor we were in the first half possibly comes, and it's got to be blamed on the manager as well as the players, because it's been constant throughout this qualifying phase, carried on from the last two games, and we were very lucky that we were still even in with a fighting chance at 3-0. Should have been 5 or 6. But then again, you're so frustrated because we played so well in that the second half, I would say, apart from the 2 goals we conceded, we dominated most of it, and we just didn't convert our chances when they came our way, and we'll need to be more clinical on Tuesday night if we want to qualify or automatically qualify for the World Cup.
Robbie, Mikey makes a point on YouTube. Thanks for watching. He says, I have to say this, guys, but if we qualify, and to be honest, when I was watching the game, I was thinking, well, if Scotland qualifies, Greece would be thinking, well, why have Scotland qualified? Because they've not played brilliant to get to the World Cup. Even though we're not there yet, and in fact, we still need to win on Tuesday night. But he says it will be the same mess we have saw at the Euros, as well. I kind of agree with that comment, Robbie and Ethan, because I always say in this show that it's all like getting to a tournament, but you want to be at the after. Like if you're going to a party, right, you want to be at the main party, but also you want to be at the after party as well. And Scotland's never went to the after party. They've actually just failed at the party and come back home.
I think I'm probably short-minded in that and thinking, how are we going to cope in the playoffs? You know, we've just played a Greece team that I know they're full of absolute quality, and they've got players all over the pitch that are really, really good. But that's a team that don't even have a chance and didn't have a chance getting into tonight, and that's how we handled the pressure. Now imagine a playoff scenario where we need to win to go to the World Cup. How are the players going to handle it then? So, you know, I get, you know, if we get to the World Cup, you know, how will the players handle that, and will we be able to progress? But will we actually be able to get through the playoffs if that's where our fate lies on Tuesday night?
Yeah, it feels like the added emphasis of Tuesday is that I don't have any confidence of Scotland getting through the playoffs, whoever we might face. I know we've got a home tie for the semi-finals, but then in the final, I think you can face teams like Turkey or Italy, and yeah, you wouldn't fancy Scotland against them at the minute. But I don't know, there's some weird reason why I fancy Scotland, maybe to nick something against Denmark on Tuesday at home. We've got previous against them. They are struggling as well, based off the fact that they've failed to beat a team outside of the top 100 in the world rankings at home. So, yeah, there's always a chance, and I think that's got to be our best chance to get to the World Cup, and it did feel like tonight. I even noted it down here. Christmas Chalice strike sends Scotland to the playoffs, because I didn't see any scenario where Scotland came out at full time still in with a fighting chance, but that's what they've got, and they've got to relish it, and the players have got to realise how lucky they are that they still do have a chance, and they need to take advantage of it, because at the end of the day, there's no reason why. I know Denmark are filled with, their squad's filled with quality players, and they've been a team that's obviously not lost in qualifying, but there's no reason why we can't beat them at Hampden. We've got quality players, and if we take our chances when they come, although that's not happened, especially in this game, maybe before you could say we've rode our luck, but I don't know if you could say that tonight. In the context of the Greece game specifically, obviously we ride our luck with the fact that Belarus have managed to pull one of the upsets of the qualifying campaign out to help us.
But sorry, Robbie, just quickly on that point, am I right in thinking that the finals are over 2 legs? Because I don't know about you guys, but a final's meant to be a one-off game. Why are they making it a 2-legged game?
I mean, that's the first time I don't know if the final's 2 legs. I've not heard anything about that, but if it is, I wonder why they've done that.
I'm sure Reagan said that on the pre-show. I don't know if you were
I don't. No, I wasn't there, but I don't know. But I thought it was both of them were 2 legs. The both semi-finals and finals.
The semi-finals are 2 legs, but the final should be just a one-all game.
But the only reason I think I thought the semi-finals might not be is because they were speaking about a home draw. But I don't know if that means having your home game second, because I know a lot of people see that as an advantage, although it's.
But I mean, what's the point of calling it a final if it's not a final because it's 2 games?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that. Yeah.
I'll have a look at that, because I'm not really sure myself now, but I'm sure Reagan said that on the show before the game.
Yeah, it's probably something to.
Robbie, sorry, you were going to say something, Robbie, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think in terms of Tuesday as well, with the amount of chances Greece created in that first sort of 30 minutes, that Denmark attack is probably quite a bit better. I'd personally say I think they've got a lot of quality in the attacking areas, and I personally don't think players like Biref and Dreyer and Wind, I don't think any of these guys will be as wasteful as the Greeks were tonight. So, the defence is really, really got to be sharp on Tuesday, because if we give up that many chances, and look, I don't see it going the same way it did tonight, but if it does, they will score quite a lot of goals. It's what Denmark are good at. They did score. I know tonight they drew 2 each, but they did score 6 against Belarus before. They've got a lot of good attacking quality. So we'll really, really need to be defensively solid on Tuesday.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And yeah, I'm just gonna run through the chances Scotland had in the second half to remind you of everything that we missed. Obviously, we got the goal with the first goal, Ben Gannon Doak. John McGinn done brilliantly. Then Robertson does brilliantly for the second one. Good header by Christie. And then it was Gannon Doak, who I think it was a very similar situation to the Christie one. He squared it to Adams again, and this time Adams didn't even have the confidence really to take on the shot, and then the chance gets away. And then McTominay had a brilliant chance. It was Ralston, I think, that fed Gannon Doak down the line. He crossed in, and McTominay comes in and tries to volley. It was an excellent save by Vlachodimos with his foot. And then there was one right at the end as well. John McGinn done brilliantly, got his body in as he always does, and then squares it across the box, and you're wondering how the world, or how in the earth Scotland haven't got a touch on it, but I think the keeper flicked it away and it hit off George Hurst and sort of spun away. But yeah, just so many chances that felt like missed opportunities, and it feels like a missed opportunity tonight, especially when if you would ask people, would they have seen or expected Belarus to go to Denmark and get a point, then they wouldn't have. And yeah, if we had even got a win tonight, and I know that maybe seems like a big ask when we're 3-0 down, but I think with the way we played, especially in the second half, the 2 Greece goals in the second half coming in against the run of play, you could say, and how many chances we gave away or didn't take, then yeah, it feels like a massive missed opportunity. But at the same time, we've got to be grateful that we're still in with a chance, and still very difficult. I'm not too confident for the game against Denmark, but I'm a lot more confident in us getting through to the World Cup through that route than via 2 rounds of playoffs against top opposition.
Yeah, we don't tend to notoriously do very well on playoffs, but I suppose we'll need to wait and see what happens on Tuesday. But you're right, there were so many missed opportunities, and I think it does. There's one part of you that's so happy with Belarus getting the point earlier, but at the same time, there's so much disappointment that we never took it enough of Greece, because if we even just get a point in that game, we're just, I think we're in so much a better position, and now the stakes are really all to play for on Tuesday, and now we know we need to win, and that's what worries me a bit for Tuesday night. The needing to win aspect. We needed to play for it. Well, we didn't need to play for a draw against Greece, and I don't think that's the mentality Steve Clarke would have been taking into the game. But I think we all knew a point would have been good enough, and the fact that even when a point would have been good enough, we were still so defensively unbalanced. I mean, that first goal is a prime example. Why is Grant Hanley pushing so far up the pitch? Why are we being left in a 2v2 scenario after only 6 minutes of the game? So, if we're going to beat Denmark on Tuesday, the defence is probably going to be the big part of the team, probably going to be the key part.
Yeah, I think it will be, and they need to get better at playing the ball out from the back. And the strange thing that I don't agree with Steve Clarke is that he sometimes brings Scott McKenna in, because I think he brought Scott McKenna in for both Belarus matches because he's better at playing the ball out from the back. But ultimately, when you're playing against a team that presses higher, you still need to be able to play out from the back with your 2 central defenders. So I don't really understand that. I think Scott McKenna should probably start. I think you agreed with that point, Robbie, that both central defenders, especially tonight, just weren't good enough, and they weren't anywhere near to the levels that we need. And I think Craig Gordon, he maybe made a mistake for the 3rd goal, or not a mistake, sorry, he should have done better with the 3rd goal. And I think the 2 fullbacks were good for most of the game. I think Lewis Ferguson could have been in the game a little bit more, but you could say that for all the midfielders, especially in the first half. They all come into it. McTominay was okay. McGinn, I thought, was excellent, especially in the second half. Christie played his part at points. Same with Ben Gannon-Doak. Shea Adams, I think the jury's still very much out on him and whether he should be the striker starting. But I think central defence is the area that really concerns me going into this Denmark game, because, as we've said, the Denmark they're another step up from Greece, and we've struggled with Greece over the last 4 times we've played them. I know we've come out on top in 2 of the games, but Denmark they're another level. They're a team that regularly get to these tournaments, and yeah, it will be really difficult. And all 11 men will need to be at the top of their game if we want to stand a chance of winning the match.
I think Robertson really saved his night with that assist for the header, because I didn't think it was too bad, and I definitely didn't pinpoint him as one of the worst players of the night. But even he looked nervous, and he's the captain. And there was a couple of times where they gave the ball away really cheaply, and I just sort of looked at him. There was the one where he tried to defend the ball, and he just lost it in a really, really stupid position that he never had to be in the first place. So he's going to be another player that will really need to step up and try and produce deliveries into the box like he did tonight, again on Tuesday. But I'm still hopeful that with the crowd behind us, and if Clarke does decide to make changes, which I personally think he will, and I think he maybe has to at a point, that the day come into effect and we can try and push on, because we do have a real big chance. And I'm going to be honest, in these groups, it's probably the biggest chance you're going to get. We've had a real favour handed to us with Belarus picking up a point in Denmark, so now we need to take advantage of that at hand.
Ethan, can I just go back to this comment that Leo made on YouTube about 2 hours ago, and I said to you that I will come back to it. I didn't forget. Well, maybe I did. I'm getting to that age, and a Saturday night I should be in bed and stuff like that with my slippers and my pipe and stuff like that. Smoking, drink responsibly, please. Can we talk about the strikers on Tuesday night? Well, I think me and Robbie's can answer that point about 5 or 6 or 7 times, but we can maybe make a point for Shankland again, Robbie, but Ethan as well. Do you share the same things as that? I think because it's a kind of cup final in a way, even though it's not a cup final, but you know what I mean. I think Stewie Clark would have to go for it on Tuesday night and play 2 up front.
Yeah, he might have to, and that's what he done in the first meeting with Denmark in the group, and obviously that was a very different game. I think Scotland fans would have snatched or bit your hand off, sorry, for a point going into that game with how we had been playing. I remember, I think I referenced to this before the match tonight, that Scotland fans had no expectations or hope going into this campaign after we were battered at Hampden by Greece in the Nations League relegation playoff. So that was a really good result, where obviously a draw's not going to do anything for us. We need to go out and win the game. And does 2 strikers make that easier? Does it make it better? Does it make it more attacking? I don't know. But ultimately, we need a striker that's going to score. And when the chances come their way, whether that be Adams, whether that be Dykes, whether that be Hurst, whether that be Shankland, I don't really care, as long as it's a striker who's going to put the ball in the net when the chances come. And who would I say would have the highest chance of doing that in a minute? I think it's got to be Lawrence Shankland. So, yeah, I would be happy to see him start. But I think, as I mentioned, I liked a lot of what Shea Adams done outside of sort of what a striker should be doing, putting the ball in the net. I liked a lot of his link-up play and bits he done sort of away from the goal, and I think that'll be enough probably for him to keep his place. Whether he should or not is another question, but I'd like to see Steve Clark be a wee bit more proactive with the substitutes if it's not going our way on Tuesday night, and if he needs to bring another striker on, don't wait until the 82nd minute, I think it was tonight, because ultimately, I know we keep saying a cup final and whatever, but we need to win this game. It's no extra time for us. The draw's not good enough. 3 points or nothing. In Denmark, they'll come into the game with an awkward approach of that we had tonight, that a point will be enough for them. But how do you explain that to the players? Do you say, I don't think you say go out there and get a draw. You say go and win the game. But obviously it's something that naturally plays in the back of players' minds, and hopefully it plays in the back of the Denmark players' minds to positive effect for Scotland, and we can kick on and beat them 3-0.
I would love to see Dykes and Shankland play up front together. I think Shankland gives you that goal threat, and I think if chances do come on Tuesday, I'd rather have him on the end of them, but I'd also rather have Dykes up there. And I think Dykes, pretty similar to Che Adams, I think he is good at the hold-up stuff. Even as you were saying about Che, I think he is good at linking up the play. I think he can be a really useful player, dropping back a bit. And then obviously, you know, if you're playing both of them up front together, it's a sort of perfect partnership, if you will. But I think you're right. The way Adams conducted himself outside of the big chances, I thought he handled himself pretty well. As you said, I thought he linked up play decent. And if it is going to be Adams, I just hope that Clark picks another striker up front next to him. I hope it's no Adams by himself, because right now he doesn't look like the guy that's going to be able to finish the big chances. And, you know, Michael, as you going about all the time, and rightly so, by the way, when is he just going to fling on Shankland and tell him, you know, go up and show me what you can do, you got to show me what you're about? Because he's not going to have Shankland about forever. You know, Shankland's not exactly a young up-and-coming striker. You know, you've got to take advantage of him while they'll go him a bit.
And I mean, Robbie, Shankland might go in a clean puff then, because he said, well, okay, I like coming along to the Scotland squad, but what's the point of coming on for 8 minutes?
I think it'd be a very reasonable argument for Shankland. Shankland will be hoping for nothing more than Che Adams. Take tonight, for example. There's nothing Shankland would love more than Che Adams to slow away his big chances, and we win the game and we're looking so good for Tuesday. But at the same time, he's probably thinking, he said, right, what have I got today to get this team? Che's missing consecutive big chances and big moments. Why can I not go and show that I can actually go and score these big chances, and you can trust me to do that in the big moments?
Yeah, if you look at if you had to ask people, and probably if you had to watch Scotland training, you would probably be backed up by who's the best finisher in front of goal, who's the most confident in front of goal. I think most of those answers and what your eyes would tell you would probably be Lawrence Shankland. He's probably got the most goals, I would suggest, this season out of the strikers. He's the player in form. He's the most confident in front of goal. So I think everything points towards him starting, but we've seen in the past that when even Lawrence Shankland's been on player of the season in Scotland form, that he's still not been really given the reins to go and be the starting striker for Scotland. And it does beg the question what he has to do to be that man, because I think if you give him a run in the team, then he possibly are repaid for that. But Steve Clarke may not live out the Scotland job to see the day when he does get the benefit of Lawrence Shankland, or it might be the other way, that Steve Clarke's still the manager when Lawrence Shankland retires, and we don't really get to see the benefits of him. But I think this is it. It's winner takes all. It's do or die, whatever you want to say it as. And I would throw Shankland in, but I just don't think it's Steve Clarke's way. He's very measured and he's very pragmatic in the way that he selects his team, the way his teams play. He's very sort of likes to keep the same core in the team and stuff like that. So I think it'll probably be Che Adams that starts, and I would actually be very surprised if it isn't Che Adams. But that being said, I would give Lawrence Shankland a nod, and hopefully he comes up trumps.
I just don't think, as a manager, I don't think you can look at that performance and know how to make any changes. Like if that's like a league game, for example, say Celtic or Rangers put in that type of performance away from home and lose 3-2, there's probably 2 or 3 changes made to the starting 11 the week after. That's how it usually works. So I think you're right, Ethan. By the way, I do think I would also be very surprised if the lineup came out on Tuesday and it wasn't Adams up front, just with the way Clarke has handled himself. But if there's no changes at all to that lineup, I'll also be very surprised. There does need to come a point where you let your loyalty aside for a minute and actually focus on what matters most. And what matters most is winning the game on Tuesday. So, I think there does need to be some sort of change made somewhere on the pitch. And I'm still sticking by my guns that Grant Hanley's going to score us the goal that takes us to the World Cup. And I think he will do it on Tuesday. But I do definitely think there needs to be change made.
I would love that, Robbie, but I think there's more a chance Grant Hanley scores the goal that takes Denmark to the World Cup than Scotland.
Quite possibly, but we'll wait and see. There might be a chance Grant Hanley doesn't even start on Tuesday, so you never know.
Yeah, I think Scott McKenna's got to start, and I would probably just about keep John Souttar in instead of Hanley or Jack Hendry. I think still a centre back in the squad that you could possibly throw in, and I've seen someone else.
Kieran Tierney.
Yeah, throwing Kieran Tierney's name forward, which could be one that could play out, but we've never really seen him play in a back four. I want to say, I know he played in a back five, and maybe Steve Clarke goes with a back five. You never know, but I would just sort of keep it. I'd try and keep all the sort of star players, our main players, our main assets in the team in their strongest position where they're playing well. Because I think John McGinn especially, I thought he sort of grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck in the second half and really drove Scotland on. Scott McTominay less so, but you know what he's like. He's always available for a goal and he nearly got one. Ben Gannon Doak, you want to keep him out wide because although he doesn't always get it right, as we've spoke on, he drags a lot of attention his way, and he can beat a defender, and he put in a really good cross for that McTominay chance that I referenced to.
Right, so I was doing my on the bandwagon of Shankland, right? So Stevie Clark, listen up. So Lauren Shankland, right, has scored 163 goals in the Premiership, right? And for Hearts, right, this is 78 goals in 153 appearances. And Robbie, he's only a sub for Scotland. So work that one out.
I think you're better asking Clark that, to be honest, because I really don't know what to say to that. I mean, it's baffling to me that Shankland can't seem to get a proper chance in this Scotland team. And I think the whole Scottish League, Michael's really overlooked. I mean, Josh Mulligan, is another player that, for me, should have been in that team. Maybe not starting, but I definitely think he should have been on the bench. And I just think a lot of our players in the league are overlooked at times. And it will be really interesting to see what it goes with on Tuesday night. But I just want to bring up one point sort of away for Scotland just for a minute. While I remember, what a result today for Morton away at Ross County. I mean, that is a big win for them, and you've got to say, guys, it probably puts Tony Docherty under a wee bit of pressure now.
I think Millen fan cheerleading for Morton, Robbie.
I'm not crediting Morton. I'm not crediting Morton, Mike. I'm just saying it's a big win away to home. But I was listening to Tony. I only bring it up because I was listening to Docherty's post-match reaction, and I've not seen a manager look that baffled for a while. He looked a bit stunned at what he was seeing. Maybe went into that job thinking he was gonna be able to bring them back and bounce back, but it's really not been the case, and they have taken a chance now, and I think you might see the back of Docherty very quickly.
Well, it's the weekend, and just because Scotland played well on a Saturday night doesn't mean to say that Robbie's going to be nice as well, even. So there you go. If you're watching this, record this, and we'll play it out in Robbie's best bits when he leaves the Big Brother. Also, when he leaves the show, that brilliant score from Morton. I would like to see any of Robbie's pals watching this programme. It's a Southern fan, even.
Michael, I'm a neutral. I'm a neutral in this game, so I'm going to call it a good result when I see it. But seriously, it is a really big result for them, and I think I was more leaning towards the fact that it's such a poor result for Ross County, and a team that I thought would genuinely be coming straight back up after they've been done.
Yeah, they've really struggled, Ross County, and the appointment of Tony Docherty doesn't really seem to change the trajectory all too much on that. And yeah, I didn't see that happening for them this season, but they're not even in anywhere near contention for promotion. And St Johnstone have obviously looked a lot better of the two relegated teams. I was just looking at the playoffs for the World Cup there, and it's two one-legged or single-legged, whatever you want to say, rounds, so semi-final and final. So that's pretty good.
So that's yeah.
And Scotland, I believe, will be seeded for the first round, which means they'll have a home tie regardless of who they play against. But then the second round is completely random, so they might be at home, they might be away if they get that far, that is, because I think they can play Italy or Turkey, I think, in the second. Well, that'll be in the second round, so that's the kind of calibre of opposition you're coming up against. So you'd rather just beat Denmark, and then we can sit back and see who some of our other opponents in the States, Canada or Mexico might be. But yeah, I just don't think that's going to be the way it goes, in Scotland. But hopefully it is. You never know. We've got to break the duck of not being at World Cups one day, and hopefully it comes on Tuesday, because we've got a massive chance against a team that I think at the moment are really beatable based on what I've seen tonight, although Scotland are very beatable as well. So hopefully it's another 5-goal thriller with Scotland scoring 3 goals.
I hope it's Scotland. I hope it's Scotland scoring all 5 of the goals, never mind 3. I don't think I want to see Denmark score 2 goals at Hampden, to be honest.
Yeah, Robbie, we're on about Shankland, right, and I'll keep going on about Shankland again until he plays 90 minutes, not 8 minutes in the game, right? But look at the bench tonight, right? Yeah, the boy Evan and Husk on the bench as well. I mean, they're 2 young kind of like talents coming through, and they're not even getting on the park.
No, you'll keep talking about Shankland, I'll keep talking about Mandron because his goal record should have warranted him a place. But, I'll let that one by. But you're right, there's so many opportunities. And I think the main one for me, actually, Josh Mulligan not being in that team really does frustrate me. That is a player that's really on good form. He's playing really well.
Caden Berry as well, we can go on. Ethan, who do you want in?
Kieran Berry I'll have in, although he's went ages, I think, without scoring for Hibs, unless I missed a goal recently.
No, I'd argue Berry's probably taking a bit of a different form, to be honest.
Yeah, he has. But that's why Steve Clark should have had him in when he was on form, and then he carries that confidence into playing for Hibs. You never know.
See, the thing about me, guys, is okay, he's not scored for a couple of weeks, right? But I would rather have, here we go, Robbie. I'm on my high horse here. I would rather have a young guy in the team than Guska, a run-of-the-mill player that's playing every time for Scotland.
I suppose so. I mean, such a weird situation. I think Che Adams, I mean, even said it earlier, with the big chances he missed, I thought he handled himself reasonably well. And, let's not forget the last time we played Denmark at Hampden, who was it that popped up with the second goal that sealed the 3 points in that night? It was Che Adams that popped up, then he took his goal really, really well in that night. So I get your point. I think I'd love to see these, the sort of younger players getting chances. And I didn't even know Andy Irvine was in the Scotland team tonight, to be honest with you. That shows how much I look. I definitely think you're right in some level. I think they've definitely got to be in the squad. I think if you're looking at players like Kieran Berry, he should be in that team, at least in the squad. I don't think I'm calling for to start every game. I think it's at some level we know what Clark's like, and we know the way he handled himself, and we know the teams I like to put it. So, I'm not screaming that he changes up the full 11 in the full system now, this long into his Scotland reign. I'm not suggesting that at all, but give him some more minutes than just bringing on, I think he subbed on Dykes after 88 minutes. He subbed on George Hurst after 88 minutes. That's not enough time for George Hurst to go and make an impact if he's going to. So, I'd just like to see him be a bit braver at moments. And I suppose what Ethan was saying earlier, I can understand why he maybe waited a bit to make the subs, but for me, he waited too long, if anything.
Yeah, I know. Am I right in saying, Ethan, that I don't go? I'm not a Stevie Clark kind of like cheerleader or whatever, but am I right in thinking that since he's been the Scotland manager, he's never made a sub at half time? Or somebody could comment on that, but I very much think he likes to make subs with 75 minutes, 75 minutes on the clock, 80 minutes, or in Shankland's case, 82 minutes.
Yeah, I think he's never ever made a sub before 80 minutes. No, I'm only joking. I think he made a couple at 75th tonight, but no, he is strange with that. That's his approach, that he always waits so long, and sometimes it's inevitable that he's just the inevitable is waiting to happen. It looks like the other team are going to score, or you're waiting for Scotland just to change the game out of nowhere. And they done it tonight. He kept the players out there, and they got themselves back into the game ultimately. But I think sometimes as the manager, you've got to make decisions before. You've got to make decisions to change the game, and it never really seems like that's what Clark's doing. He always seems to be making substitutions just to freshen up the legs. And I know he threw all the strikers on as a last attempt to get an equaliser, but ultimately it was too late. And the other 2 subs he makes early in the match are 2 subs to take off defenders and put other defenders on. I just don't really see the point in it. And I know probably you're taking Aaron Hickey off because he's obviously had a lot of injury problems recently, and that's fair enough. And then you're taking Grant Hanley off because he's a bomb scare. But yeah, I just sometimes these substitutions baffle me, and I just wish he would be a little bit more proactive and make the subs to affect the game, because it doesn't really seem like he does that often. But from what I've seen and heard, it's sort of always been his way, even at Kilmarnock and at West Bromwich Albion in the past. It's kind of his philosophy in football that he just waits until the last minute almost to make substitutions. And I don't think he's ever going to change it at his age. So fair enough. But yeah, it's agonising viewing for Scotland fans.
Grace get the red card on the 84th minute. He then waited 4 minutes before putting George Hurst on. I mean, after that red card, we had a free kick in a good position at that point. Just fling everything at it. Just put George Hurst on at that point, Why wait an extra 4 minutes to make that sub? Just go all guns to the wall, you know what I mean? So I think you're right, but you're also right in saying, at this point, I think a lot of us are fair to, bring up these points. Why is he not getting in the squad? Why is he not getting in the squad? Why is Park not changing this or that? At this point, he's this long into his reign that he's just not going to change it. That's, I think, as well, for like, there's a lot of people I'm seeing online tonight saying, Clark out, Clark this, Clark that. Clark's not going to leave the Scotland job at this point. He's too far into it now. He's going to at least get the chance to try and qualify us for the World Cup, and if he gets there, he's going to get a run at it. So, I don't think there's really any point in complaining about Clark at this point, because we know how it's going to go. We know he's going to get this time, and if he does get us to the World Cup, then for me, he deserves the chance of, taking Scotland to a World Cup.
Yeah, quite possibly. Another thing that really annoyed me, just on the point of the red card, which I thought was quite a harsh second yellow card, but I think the referee was giving soft fouls and yellow cards all night. One point, I thought he had sent Lewis Ferguson off because I thought he'd already had a yellow card, but turns out it was John McGinn who got a yellow card early in the first half. But why did Craig Gordon went up for a corner or a free kick, and then they told him to go back with like a minute left? Like, what's the point? Just throw everything at it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It was in the final minute of injury time. I don't know how they only added 4 minutes of injury time. I'll never know, but ultimately it didn't matter in the end. Even if we had got a point, it would have made little to no difference. We would have been in the same scenario behind Denmark on a dramatic amount of goal difference rather than behind them on a point, and still would have had to win on Tuesday night. But maybe it would have been a little bit better for the squad morale heading into that match had we got a late equaliser and maybe kept ourselves in the running ourselves rather than relying on Belarus to give us a favour like they did.
There you go, Robbie. You can answer that question.
Again, that's a topic for another day. Who we replace Clark with? A very easy question, but ultimately, I mean, we don't know when we're going to be replacing them. We don't know who's going to be in the market. I mean, there was a comment earlier saying about a foreign approach. There we go for a foreign manager next. I mean, that can all be spoken about after this World Cup campaign. But as far as I'm concerned, we've got Steve Clark in the door now. We're still in with a chance on Tuesday night, which it's going to be a tough one, but it's one with the whole crowd behind us. We shouldn't show any fear. We should go after Denmark, and if we get the World Cup, then I'll be excited for what's to come next. Yeah,
and I think I've said it on here before, maybe as a last point I'll make, that I think Steve Clark will probably walk unless he gets Scotland to the World Cup knockouts. I think even if we get there, I think if we get there and it's the same disappointing failing to get out of the groups like it's been at the last 2 Euros, and I think he'll see it as maybe him taking this Scotland squad as far as he can take it, and maybe he'll give someone else the opportunity to try and take Scotland forward, as we've obviously got a lot of young players coming through that maybe need a new lease of life under a new manager. But who that manager is, no one comes to mind at the minute, so that's maybe the problem that we're faced with. That's maybe why we don't get to World Cups. We don't have any Scottish managers that could be the manager. We don't have any great Scottish strikers. I know we've got some good strikers, but no great strikers, and we're relying on a 42-year-old Craig Gordon to line up in the sticks. So yeah, but we're nearly there. So yeah,
I wonder if you're speaking about a new lease of life and all that. I wonder what the FA would think about maybe throwing a young guard manager into the Scotland role. For as much as there's maybe no that much attraction right now for looking at other managers that are currently available, I wouldn't see the harm in maybe getting it to somebody that can maybe give a bit of a modern day approach to the national team. And I mean, I don't know. Look, that might be a big step. It is taking on an international job, so maybe that would be the argument. Maybe it is too much of a step up for managers. But again, we'll need to wait and see what happens, because you never know. If things go away on Tuesday night, we'll have Clark at least until the end of the World Cup. So I will just need to wait and see what happens.
There you go. That's Robbie's fault. It's time to go then. If we're talking about new managers, me, Robbie, and Ethan, and for I can do a warm up, and Robbie and Ethan can do the tactics, and I'll just come in on a Monday and a Saturday and say, right, guys, get them beaten. So that's all for us tonight. It's been a brilliant show, brilliant Saturday night as well. I demand all games on a Saturday night now, but we are getting a wish next Saturday night, St Mirren Park, 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. Weird, but hey, that's the world of TV. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube, and you can, if you don't want to watch us, why not? We are three handsome men. Well, two of them are, and one of them's anyway. Yeah, you can subscribe to the Spotify channel. I don't know what I was going to say there, but it wasn't something very nice at me, by the way, because so yeah, and we'll be back on Tuesday night for the big, well, I'm going to say the cup final. The winner takes all. Scotland against Denmark at Hampden Park. Will be on air at 7:15, or we might be on air at 6:30 as well. Thanks to Robbie, thanks to Ethan, thanks to Regan for joining us earlier, and thanks to Stephen, our Greek journalist, giving us a wee insight in Greece in the pre-show. We'll do it again on Tuesday night. And remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the Scottish Football Zone. Where it finished tonight, Greece 3, Scotland 2.
A Scottish Football Zone special following Scotland in World Cup qualifying.